I'm Scott Simi, and on today's edition of our Soundbite micro podcast, we're going to be talking about the big World Mobile Congress show in Barcelona. Now, InDro's head of R&D sales, Luke Corbeth, is actually there on the floor. Welcome, Luke, and thanks for taking the time.
Of course, Scott. It's great to get off my feet.
I'll bet. Now, I know this is a really big show, but if you could give us just kind of in a nutshell what it's all about.
Yeah, so Mobile World Congress is really designed to showcase the latest and greatest in connectivity and devices. So you've got a lot of telecom players, hardware providers, all showing, the latest and greatest, everything from 5G technologies, even 6G nowadays, to some really impressive new hardware products. It's a really interesting show.
Now, I understand InDro is there at the invitation of Ericsson. What are we displaying?
Yeah, so on display, we have our VR teleoperation package. So essentially, we're outfitting a humanoid robot to be controlled by an operator via a MetaQuest virtual reality headset. And the whole thing has extremely low latency and really high security since it's connected through EP5G, the Ericsson private 5G network. The system essentially allows a highly trained technician to physically embody the robot and perform a series of actions. It's really been a crowd pleaser so far, and we think it's a critical stepping stone for this technology.
Now, I would imagine being a trained operator, you're probably the one at the controls, but has anyone else been able to try it?
The King of Spain came by, but he was in a bit of a hurry, so he didn't get to quite get around to it.
So tell me a bit about what the use cases would be, practical use cases for a humanoid like this.
Yeah, so we're here showing, a glimpse into the future, specifically with a warehouse context. In a warehouse application, this type of system would be really great for suspicious package inspection. So really taking the human out of harm's way, because robots are expendable, and treating a case like that. We've also seen use cases outside of manufacturing, anywhere you really wouldn't want to send a human. So think, a radioactive or contaminated space, a utility facility, things of that nature, where a trained technician can come in, operate the robot, and perform the task as they normally would, and just not put themselves away.
So basically, you're wearing like a set of high-res VR goggles, you've got hand controllers in your hand, and you're able to basically operate the robot over 5G. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Very cool. What has reaction been like?
Yeah, it's been very, very positive. Everyone sees humanoids and is through sci-fi and other mediums, expect them to be autonomous. And while that is the end goal here, we're showing what we think is, a critical piece in that whole puzzle. So you imagine you have your most highly trained technician performing a task. The system can collect visual and motion and haptic data, which that we can then put into a reinforcement learning algorithm via simulation, and then deploy that skill or policy to the system, and ultimately deploy it in an autonomous capacity. The thing that's interesting, though, is people say, well, if it's autonomous, why would we need connectivity? Why would we need 5G? Well, with any autonomous system, you're always going to want the capacity to take over if needed. So even in the long run, we still see a use for this. And in the medium term, it's a great way to collect that data needed to make these systems autonomous.
Now, at InDro, we've really seen a growth over the last couple of years in demand for our customized humanoids and quadrupeds. What's behind that?
Yeah, so in the case of this solution, being able to connect it to a network is pivotal for some of these use cases and development. And that's just something the platform doesn't have out of the box. So we're able to equip it, with that hardware, but then also complement it with the software that we've created. Stemming from that same example, some people may need three finger hands for what they're doing, five finger hands, or custom end effectors like suction cups and other devices. And so our team has a really unique capacity for that integration and that development.
Now, I understand that Ericsson has also invited Cipher Robotics, which is a separate Canadian company that we work closely with to develop technology. What is Cipher displaying?
Yeah, so Cypher's displaying Captus, which is an autonomous inventory cycle counting solution. It pairs together a drone and an AMR to do this, and it's made sense to count your inventory with a drone for a long time. You imagine something's 40 feet up in the air. It's a lot easier to count it with a drone than to have a guy on a forklift, take it down, hand scan it, put it back, and so forth. Not to mention, close the aisle down during work hours while they do that. So this aims to kind of solve that problem for a task that is dirty, dangerous, and dull. It does this by, we connect the drone via powered tether to the AMR, the autonomous mobile robot, and the AMR is essentially acting as a portable power and communication hubs for the complete system. The drone then scans, barcodes, QR codes, however pallets are labeled, and sends that information again over the Ericsson private 5G network to their WMS or warehouse management system. At the same time, it's pulling information from the WMS, so we can really compare, what we actually have on hand to what we thought we had on hand. And that variance report that's created through our software allows them to really increase the accuracy of their inventory.
Now, as the world shifts towards more of an industry 4.0 world, automated systems, particularly in like really dreary jobs like inventory counting, will fill a huge marketplace void. So I'm curious what the reaction has been to Cipher and the Capta system.
Yeah, it's really captured the imagination of a lot of the attendees that have came by. One thing that's worth noting is, this is a solution that's deployed today, and as I mentioned, has delivered some significant business impact. And that usually comes twofold. One is on the auditing side. So when it comes to audit season, being able to literally show a time-stamped image of what you have, how much you have of it, where it was, and when it was captured, really reduces the time frame to complete that audit process, which typically cascades into an absolute nightmare for a lot of companies.
Now, Ericsson has often invited InDro and I believe Captus to some of these big shows. Why is that?
Yeah, all of the solutions that are created, 5G is the enabling technology. With any automate, even when a system is automated, as I mentioned before, you really want to be able to take over at a moment's notice if you need to. But that's not the most important part. It's the low latency, the data security, the scalability of a private network. It just provides so much to the overall value proposition that of the solutions that we've built.
Nice. Now, I know you've probably been talking nonstop on the floor, but have you had a moment to look around? And if so, is there anything really cool that's caught your eye?
Yeah, it's been super busy, so haven't gone around as much as I'd like, but I've heard some great things out of Google, for instance, with their new AI glasses. I'll be sure to find some time tomorrow to try those on.
Now, these conferences are always so busy. Will you get a moment to actually see some of the city before you head back?
I've been to Barcelona before, but I definitely want to explore more. But the forecast doesn't seem to be on my side, so I'll see what I can do indoors.
Awesome. Well, enjoy, Luke. I hope the forecast improves. Luke Corbeth, InDro's head of R&D sales. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Scott.